GI. 2 letters that inspire the scenes of an incredible athlete in the minds of all rugby league fans. A warrior, a powerhouse, a Queensland and Australian representative, Greg Inglis is one of the greats of our game. In today's chat, Greg speaks openly about his mental health struggles, the biggest lessons he's learnt, and how he wants to break the stigma through his work with Goanna Academy. This episode of Marlee Me was recorded on the lands of the Gadigal people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and always remember, it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Greg Inglis, welcome to Marlee Me. It's so nice to sit in front of the mic with you. Last year at a mental health awards ceremony, we had a quick taste of like a 15-minute Q&A. I got to talk to you about a few things. And
was it 15?
It was only meant to be 15 minutes, but I think we could have sat there for a long time. And
easily.
From that moment I had in my head, I really wanted to have the opportunity to have a bit of a longer conversation with you because your story, I mean, as a rugby league player, is one any fan of the game is familiar with because of all you achieved and I mean, especially as a young black fella, how much you inspired kids like myself. But I think in more recent years, what you've done since retiring and how open and honest you are about your story and your journey is just, it's pretty incredible. And I would love more people to hear that if they haven't. But, you know, it's really important for me to start with that question that we mob know, which is, who's your mob and where you're from?
Yeah, my mob's Dungutty and Gamilaroi. So my dad was born in Tamworth, you know, coming out of, you know, the Tinga region, Inverell and Tamworth region. So mum's obviously Kempsey born, Dungutty land. So born in Kempsey but raised in Maxville. Lived in Barrowville for a few little years and then we call it a bigger town, Maxville. So we moved into town. But yeah, I grew up there all the way up until I was like 15, until I moved away to Newcastle. At the age of 16. So tried my luck there and, you know, trying to get something with Newcastle at that time, and I was attending Hunter Sports High, and, you know, that was a learning curve for me. Obviously Newcastle was a big city to me because at this point in time I was already signed with Melbourne. So I signed with Melbourne at the age of 14. Wow. You know, that's, you know, early years. But yeah, obviously, you know, we're fast tracking now and, you know, had a wonderful career down in Melbourne and, you know, made the move up here to Sydney. So I didn't want to come to Sydney. Too big for me. I was always against it. It was like, no. So, but anyway, I found myself at Redfern and, you know, the story behind getting to Redfern was I didn't want to come here and I didn't want to meet Russell because Gladiator's my all-time favourite, still is. Yeah,
don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, don't meet your heroes. But yeah, he's still so when he was ringing up Chock Mundine was ringing me, telling me he's going to ring me, I said, nah, it's all bullshit, not going to ring. Hung up him twice.
No.
Yeah, I did because I thought it was, you know, obviously you hear people play those pranks, put the Russell Crowe voice on, and I was like, nah, this ain't happening. I don't want to meet him. Yeah. But he ended up getting me down here. He didn't really speak about the club itself. He spoke about the community and, you know, what he wants to do within the community, how he wants to bring it all together and make it, you know, a juggernaut of a thing because, you know, you look at successful clubs, well then, you know, they have the backing of the community and they're involved in the community and that's what he did. So, and that's what got me. He took me for a drive around Redfern, showed me, you know, his ideas and what he wants to bring and that's what, you know, pretty much got my signature on the contract.
Yeah. So would you say then you've always been like community minded? Or is that something that sort of came to you a bit later on?
No, I was in Melbourne and I went to uni and, you know, shout out to another Delhi blackfellow, Pete Robinson, who's from Cobar. And he went down there to, you know, at a younger, I'll say sort of like a younger age in Melbourne, try his luck. He played a fair few games, but he stayed down there. And, his role was the welfare part of it, looking after players, transitioning or wanting to do something outside of footy. And he's still there today, still doing in that role. So I went to him and I said, I want to do, something within community. So I went and got completed uni in the courses that we did, and that was a Cert 4 in youth work, and went on to do like better drug and alcohol courses as well. And so from an early age, I wanted to do something and give back to community in some way. And what I'm doing now with the Goanna, we're only 5 years young, but I'm all over Australia. I'm travelling everywhere, and as you would know, we've been trying to lock this down for 3 weeks. So it's like, I can't do this day, can't do that day. I can do this day, but look, finally here, finally got it. So
managed to lock you in before you have to jump on another plane.
Jump on another plane or jump in another car. So I just got back from Orange and Lithgow coming up in Oberon.
Okay. Well, I want to get to a point where we're talking about Goanna and what you're seeing on the ground and all that stuff. But I always like to start with talking about the concept of home. And like you spoke about being born in Kempsey, but living for a lot of your younger years in Maxville. Does Max feel like the most homely place, or where feels most like home these days?
Home's always home. It doesn't matter where you go, and this is what I try and tell community, especially our younger generations coming through. If you're not the first to finish school, why not be the first in your family? And first to not finish uni, why not be the first? Because in my family, none of, my parents, my aunties, uncles didn't have the opportunity to finish school or, all go to uni. And then my older cousin who, he did it. He finished school, he finished uni, he was school captain, and then now we got, about 4 other members of our family coming through that's been, excelled in those things. So that's what I chat to them about. Why not be the first? But home's always home. I always tell them, it's like, go make something of yourselves. Try something, try it. If it's not, well, then home's always home.
Yeah.
But home for me is always going to be, Maxwell. So I'll try to get back out there as much as I can because that grounds me and gets me back. It's something magical when you go back to your home.
Yeah.
You go back up. I'll go back up there and spend a few days and just reset. It's like a reset button for me.
Yeah.
Friends and that live up there still. Got a lot of family and that still there. So I stay in town for maybe first 2 days and say hello to everyone and family. And then I'll go out to Barra, up in the mountains and just chill out there by the river, by the fire. Yeah,
beautiful. It's
just beautiful country. Yeah. So.
What are some of your best memories or early memories of Maxville that you, I don't know, that are maybe the ones that come back to you every time you go there?
I would say probably, the first thing that comes to mind is my dad. When I think of home, I think of the football club. So it's always been involved around rugby league, and but you think of the places and that. I played for Barraville Junior Rugby League. Like I said, from the age of 4 to 15 until I moved away. But I remember just going to, even when we lived in Barraville and Dad was playing footy for Maxwell, was going to training sessions on the Tuesday and Thursday nights, what he did. So, and now I'll go back up there and still see his old teammates and they just see, hey, Grego. So, we spoke about earlier about a little community that makes makes a team, and for Maxwell that's what it was. But when I think about out there, I think about Maxwell Seagulls Footy Club, and we talk about Barra, and it's just very, even though there was some dark history up there around growing up around Barraville, there's still a lot of great memories that I have up there because, like I keep saying, home's home, and that's where I created really good friendships. I still got a good mate since year 2 from up there. So
beautiful.
I've one of the lucky ones that still have that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think? I don't know. What are some of the lessons or values that shaped your understanding of things from that community? Whether it's from the footy club, whether it's from your dad or your family.
Yeah, I wasn't. I guess I wasn't the how would you put this? a straight A student in the community. I was going around, obviously getting a little bit of trouble as we do as younger kids, and I don't know. It's just things like, I don't know, just stupid little things that that you're doing as kids growing up. But I learned very quickly that as big as I thought Maxwell is, it's a small place.
Yeah,
and obviously everybody knows everyone. But when you're my dad and you're playing in the local town as one of the players, you soon know. They soon realise who these kids are.
Yeah.
So I had to get with in shape very quick, and this sort of
get dobbed into.
Yeah, very quickly. So he's obviously, my family's obviously well respected in that because they grew up there and part of the elders as well. So now I learnt very early, and I got taught this very early age. No matter where you go in life, no matter what you do, you have your family name to carry wherever you go. So respect that. Respect was another massive thing that I got taught. So, and just be very mindful of how you are in public because of a reflection on your family. So I got taught that at an early age. About 10 years old. So, I guess that's it. No matter where you go in life, no matter what you do, somebody around the world, wherever you are, knows somebody of your family. So it's that connection. So represent your family name as best you can.
100%.
Because you're carrying it for the rest of your life.
For sure. I think especially in like community with blackfellas.
Yeah.
We always try and figure out how we're connected and whatever. So you would learn that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Who is looking out for you or is going to tell your dad what you're doing.
Or me, nan. So,
or your nan.
We're always scared of the old side. It's like I remember one time I get in trouble and I run out of the house and I run down, because Nat and Pop, we lived in the same street in Wall Street, and we run down, because they lived at the bottom of the street, it was dead end, No Through Road Street. So I run down there and Nat and Pop would go, well, what'd you do? Tell them a little white lie and then get a little cuddle. But yeah, it was, but those are the memories that you have.
Yeah. So you at 15 then, when you do pack up and move away from like this place that it's all you've known and your family's there and you clearly love it so much. I mean, do you remember how you felt when you first moved to Newcastle? Like, were you homesick or scared?
I wouldn't say scared, because I lived in Kirinari Hostel in Cardiff. Oh, yeah. And I was lucky I had 12 lads there as well. But I also had 3 other cousins there from back home in Kempsey. So, nice. We just wanted to try something different, wanted to get out. And I guess that's where I was saying earlier, where I think homes was always going to be home, just go out and try something. But, at the ages, when I decided to go down, I played, before I left there, I was playing under 15s Barra on the Saturdays and backing up playing for Maxwell on the Sundays for under 18s. Yeah. And the reason I wanted to do that, because I didn't think I'll get the chance to play for Maxwell Seagulls again. To see me dad, see me uncles, older cousins, older brother was playing for Maxwell, and that's all I knew, And like I said before as well, going with Dad on Tuesday, Thursdays, and going to every game that he played on weekends. So Maxwell was something a team that I wanted to play for, a club I wanted to play for. So I did that. And then I think I just went down, birthday's in January, so I think I went down just after my birthday, after my 16th birthday. Mm-hmm. And, sort of got a little bit homesick in the first month, because I just, Newcastle was a massive city to me.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to go there and try and get time on Newcastle Knights, and wanted to see what the city football style was like. Yeah. To try and test myself, but the main thing was I wanted to try and get with Newcastle and to be closer to home. Wasn't the bees, and found that out halfway through the year. So 16-year-old boy, living away from home, didn't make the smartest choices or smartest, decisions. So, when I say that there, it's like started drinking, started going to parties, getting into fights, tried, marijuana, ecstasy pills and all that there stuff. So still doing all that there, all that negative crap, where really I should have just packed up and got back home and trying to get things, but I left it too late. I think term 4 I ended up going back home, and just like I went and lived with my grandparents. You know, I love my parents, whole thing, but for me at that point in time, I felt like being around my grandparents was the best move to get back on track. You know, and realising what I wanted. And then at age of 16, Melbourne asked me to go down and do 2-week pre-season training with them.
God, I did not realise you were that young.
Yeah, and I lasted a week.
Yeah.
And I think clubs are way better at it now about, you know, if you bring in country players, you know, because we don't get taught any of this science stuff, what it's like, or all that kind of, you know, what it takes to be an NRL player. We don't get taught that.
No.
It's going rare ability, right? So the clubs now, I think they're getting a lot better at it, about educating them around this is what to expect. You know, your body's going to be sore. You're going to have all this kind of different things thrown at you. But yeah, at that time, I was 16 and lasted a week, but I still stayed down there for 2 weeks. And I remember Craig walking past me because I couldn't finish a fitness drill, and he said something. He didn't mix his words, I'll tell you that much. But right there and then, I had a taste of what my life could be like. I had an understanding, or a bit of an understanding of what it took. Yeah. Because, you know, I had Matt Alford down there at the time, Robbie Kearns had, you know, coming towards the back end of his career. I just touched on Peter Robertson before. Bill was still young, still coming through. You know, this is like, I think it was like second year in the first grade. Bill was, I think we were talking about 2003. Yeah. And so, you know, having those guys looking at it, Scott Hill was another one. Just seeing how those guys and how they trained, it's like I wanted to be part of that because they built their own little community down there. They all become family, really, and I've figured that out first few days when I was down there. But yeah, Craig walked past me, like I said, didn't mix his words, choice words, and I was like, well, I could take it the hard way or, you know, learn from it, and I just learned from it. Yeah. Went back to, moved to Brisbane by then. I was attended Wavell State High, playing for North Devils, and Wavell State High was like a school program where they sent the students that Melbourne sent their students that were still part of the Melbourne Storm system. North Devils was their feeder club. So at the age of 17, I was up there. I lived with a family called the Coolwell family, Torres Strait Islander, respected family around Brisbane area, and he worked in the police force, and he worked at, I think his station was in Roma Street at this time. And he took me in there and showed me at night. He took me there at night and showed me if I choose the wrong path, this is where I could end up. I walked down and I said, don't ever bring me back in here. Man, I was scared. I was, you know, probably the first time in my life where I was like, I got slapped across the face. I was like, wow. I didn't realise where, you know, if I stayed in that Newcastle, Greg, you know, that's probably where I could have ended up. So, yeah, I snapped out of it pretty quick, and, you know, did finish schooling up there and finished league. You know, once you took me in there, though, my attendance picked up, my grades picked up, and because, you know, I'm a visual learner. Yeah. So when he showed me that, I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. I'm going to snap out of it really quick. And so that all happened. Then that same year, 17, when Melbourne asked me to go back down there and ended up staying down there. So I stayed down there and I was doing training, but flying back Brisbane to play on games on a Sunday. I think 3 o'clock games it was on a Sunday. So we'll fly up Saturday afternoon. If the boys had to train Saturday, we'll sit there and train with them. Then we'll fly up and do captain's run up there at night. Wow. Play on the Sunday, normally 3 o'clock, and then we'll be on a plane that night back to Melbourne. Wow. And if the boys played or Saturday or they play Friday, and we get back there, we'll do our recovery on the Monday morning, and the boys had training, we had to turn up and run a pose against them. So
really put you in shape
quick.
Yeah.
But I think they still do it in that kind of way. But again, like all that science and that stuff with it now, I'm not too sure. They probably got away with it, get away with it a little bit more. But you know, you just put your head down and you just do the work. You know, that's all we did.
And I think what maybe some people don't really realise is when you have a career that was as long as yours, when you used from such a young age to have that structure and that discipline and that way of life, when you start to get towards the end of it, as you've spoken about, like that was a really tough time for you as things sort of changed and you were going through some stuff mentally, and that transition element is, you know, I assume and I understand a little bit, can be really frightening, and it's like you've got to start your life all over again. What was that like for you as you were coming towards the end of it?
Yeah, well, when I come to, you know, the decision of it, but the decision was based around, and I'd have no regrets about it because I don't think I could have been, you know, who I was. The decision came around that I couldn't be the player or the leader week in, week out, day by day around the club. You know, I was captain at the time. So to do that role properly, I needed to be myself properly, and I couldn't be the player and I couldn't be, you know, what I was. I was only end up training like twice, maybe 3 times a week and then playing games. So it was hard, and it was hard to swallow that pill. But, you know, that's where the decision was made. Waking up and not, you know, going there, you know, extra 2 hours early just to do physio to get right for training. You know, body started not telling me things, but, you know, I just knew that if I kept playing with them, my body would be wrecked and I wouldn't be satisfied with the way I perform around training itself as well, not only just games. But so that decision came, and I went and seen Wayne about it. Had a really good chat. He went and saw him at the start of pre-season, or halfway through pre-season, and he goes, all right, we'll just sit on it for a bit. And I rang up Craig and mentioned the same thing, had a good chat with him, and he said pretty much the same thing. So rang up Mel as well and had a good chat with him about it all. So, you know, these are 3 very, you know, well-regarded, respected coaches in the game. And I was lucky enough to be coached by the 3 of them. But when it came to that decision, Wayne turned around and says, look, once you make the decision, when you retire, you're a long way from retired. And I didn't understand that. And I thought I could just pack up and walk away from it. It's didn't happen to be because, like you said, I was in that system, structured, you know, knew what to do, knew what to wear, day in, day out. And walking away from it was like no motivation. I didn't know. I never had a plan. Yeah. I just thought I could just stick around the club and, you know, do what I needed to do, and that was it. And happy, you know, go play golf most of the days, you know. But yeah, it was. I guess it was kind of. I came unstuck then. Like I came unstuck, and then I got stuck into that no motivation world. Waking up and I'm just going through the motions, kind of day in, day out kind of vibe. And then before I knew it, I was, you know, laying on my bed and not wanting to get out of bed because I was just, well, I didn't know it at the time. I was just depressed. Then I turned to drinking, and I turned to, you know, prescription drugs, and then just to numb how I was feeling, just to wake up, you know. And we convince ourselves that we need that drink. Yeah. We convince ourselves that we need it when we don't. And I learnt the hard way, and this is where I'll go around, talk around about it with the academy. We don't need it. We just need to find a way you know, to feel that missing piece for it, so we can, I guess, wake up and, you know, feel good again. And that just goes back to simple routine in your life. having routine. I had the routine for so long and I thought I could just walk away, and then touched on drinking, prescription drugs, numbing myself. And then I found myself in rehab. And the reason I had to go to rehab because I needed it. And because to tell you the truth, I was dead and buried 6 or 7 years ago. If I stayed there, like absolutely I was. And so I also talk about having really good friends around you in your circle, core friends, people that will share good news, be there bad times, bad news, celebrate with you, call you out in your bullshit when you know, where most people won't, and people that who don't judge at all.
Yeah.
They're the ones you want in your life, and I'm lucky that I have that. So them, along with my wife, Elise, she's been very strong in that part, and CEO of Tigers now, Shane Richardson, they guided me into a path that led me into rehab. So when I was in there, it was really intense. It was really hardcore therapy, and I'm so thankful for it. But that was the second time in my life where I was actually scared shitless.
Yeah.
Because you're walking through those doors and you think you have all this serious stuff, you're walking in with. But then once you get there, I remember standing there, I was almost in tears because you're pretty much walking in naked. It's like you've been reborn again. Walk in there and it's, shit, what are they going to find out about me? What am I going to find out about myself? We don't do that. We don't work on ourselves as we should.
Yeah.
So what have I got buried in my mind? They're going to bring out. Is it going to be traumatizing? Is it going to be a thing? But I think going in there was obviously one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because I came out and I had an idea of where I wanted to go on my next journey in life. And that's the Goanna Academy.
Yeah.
We're only 5 years young, but like I said, 6, 7 years ago, I was dead and buried.
That's an incredible turnaround to think that. And I know that, the way that you tell that story, obviously that's not a smooth path from the point you were in rehab. But do you remember when rehab was sort of suggested to you? Like, how did you respond to that? Or was there a particular moment where you realised you had to do that or you wouldn't?
No, when it got suggested, I was like, yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I was, that's how bad it was.
Yeah. You knew that you needed
I
that
knew.
help.
I knew. And, we're just coming back of an orange clinic. It was, as you can tell now, like I'm an open book. I don't, I'll share whatever about my life. But when I was down there in the town of Orange, just chatted about it. It's like we need to work on ourselves, but in order for me to get this up and running, I don't want them going through what I went through. So this is what I talk about. So provide them with tools, provide them with phone numbers that people they can reach out with, and that was the biggest thing that I had. I didn't have phone numbers, but I had a good core group of friends to help me, through that. Yeah, it was a dark time in my life, and I wouldn't be walking this earth if I kept on that path.
Yeah,
without a doubt. But that was hard. 3 weeks of hardcore therapy.
Yeah.
But
when you were in those darkest moments, do you think part of what was sort of led you there was maybe you didn't feel like you could tell people what was going on, or you couldn't even recognize?
Yeah, well, our culture, right, we're warriors.
Yeah.
We're breadwinners. We're the ones that provide. We're the ones that shouldn't show weakness. We're the ones that, our Indigenous men are wide different, all right? Mainly men in general. You got a problem with your car. Our job is go down to mechanics and making sure you're not being ripped off. Fix it, you know? Yeah. So we don't talk about our feelings. We don't share it. We're not supposed to. Pat on the back. Get up. Keep going on, soldier. So I felt like I couldn't. Well, I was ashamed, because that comes with it. I was ashamed to ask for help. I was ashamed to admit that I had a problem. And once I became over, those two things did play a big part, because if I wasn't ashamed, I would have asked for help, right? But so I was trying to break down that stigma, break down that barrier of it's okay not to be okay, and do go ask for help. Because I realised at that point in time there was a lot more people cared about me than what I thought.
Yeah.
And when I realised, so our lives are worth living. Your life is worth living. Mine is too. And sometimes we forget that. And, we forget that we have a lot more people that love us for who we are than we realise.
You work now with a lot of young people through the Goanna Academy. What do you tell them, or how do you help them realise exactly what you just said, that our lives are worth living, that there are people who care about them? Is there any sort of strategies, or do you help them sort of figure that out?
Yeah, so, obviously get up and tell me story and share what I just shared. But in there, we give them, they go through five topic points. And in the very first one, it's like, all right, who's in your network? Who can you turn to? Who do you trust? And, there's 12 of them, and I just tell them, if you got 12, that's great. Probably by the end we finish the modules, you probably only have 6. So, but that's forever evolving. It's always people got to come in and go out, and that's just life. But if you can, identify these people early in your life that wants to stick around, well, then you're lucky. You're very lucky. And I'm trying to get them to identify those people in their life. Again, but I talk to them about, if you 50-50, like if you're and an R, and if will I tell Marlee that? Maybe not. Don't put them down, because you won't share anything with them. Maybe in time you will, but if you're thinking about 50-50 now, don't put them down. So I'll get them to do that exercise. I'll get them to, either talk about an individual person, and, what do they mean to you? So it's sort of like, just those small little touch points. All right, Marlee, this is what you mean to me. And for that person, if they're in the room, for them that they hear it, they're like, oh, wow, I feel loved myself, So, just touching on those little small, simple things, but we don't stop and realise it ourselves. So.
Yeah. I mean, having these kinds of conversations is so important, and having them publicly, like with someone like yourself that has that profile that's respected, and I think can still have such an influence on so many different people. You've also spoken about the diagnosis that you ended up with. I mean, can you talk us through how you got to that point? And I think like having a name and a diagnosis put to how you feel or why your brain works a particular way can be freeing, but can also be scary because of that stigma that you've talked about. So what was that like for you?
Well, I went through, and this is another thing where I talk about, it's not, you go to the shop and you try on clothes or you try on shoes, whatever, and it doesn't fit. It's exactly the same way as a psychiatrist. If you got to keep going, you got to keep going back to you find the right one that suits you, that you have a connection with. I went through 3 before I found my right one. Yeah. So, and then finding him, and then obviously coming out of rehab, out of therapy, I still had consistent therapy, and I still do. And it was going on for about 3 months. I kind of got a little big diagnosis. Well, the first 2 I got diagnosed with. I did be diagnosed with 3 things, right? One was depression and anxiety, so that was straight away identified. And then as the 3 weeks went on and came out of that 2 weeks, and then he goes, I think you got bipolar 2 disorder. And then so he works in that space of bipolar 2 and those disorders that's happened. And 3 months later, he goes, well, try these different medications, but I think you'll be suited to this one. Because I was on, before this year, I was on 8 different types of tablets, just chopping and changing, and then, but now having a proper therapist, psychiatrist, proper diagnosis, I'm only taking 1 tablet a night. So it's a key thing to have. But again, it goes back to what I was just saying. If you go to a shop and you don't feel comfortable in it, don't buy it. It's the exact same thing as your psychiatrist. Get the ones that you feel connected with and that you get the most benefit out of. You know, they're not going to be offended if you say this ain't working.
Yeah.
Because they're there to help you as much as, you know, you need it.
And I guess what you were saying before, like that core group of people who are looking out for you, that a mental health professional can be a part, well, if in a point of crisis, should be a part of that network, right, to help you keep kind of going down the right way. And,
you know, working in community, it's working with young kids. It could be, you know, your friend's, you know, father, mother, you know, it could be their coach, could be a teacher at school that they feel connected with. So, you know, it's them identifying it, but they wouldn't know it unless we speak about it. Yeah,
definitely. I think that when you're talking about how as a man or even as a black man, there is that sort of provider warrior expectation that you maybe had on yourself, I feel like people might assume that that's almost something that would have been intensified as a rugby league player, because it's sort of this place where, you know, tough men are the most celebrated. And I mean, I feel like the playing group of men who are in the NRL now seem to talk about things a bit more openly. But how do you see it? Do you feel like there's more people like yourself in the game who are being open? And I mean, hopefully that's helpful to another generation of men who are watching them.
Yeah, well, we're trying to normalise the conversation around it, right? You know, we're trying to normalise that being just another conversation that's, you know, that's just as important as you know, how'd the boys go on the weekend?
Yeah.
So trying to normalise as much as we can. So, you know, these players have a very unique opportunity to use their platform to speak up about, you know, topics. And you've seen big transformation since COVID within it. So, but yeah, I guess we're trying to normalise it as much as we can. It starts with a conversation, starts with a question. And the more, you know, players or athletes right across any sport can use their platform in the right way to speak about, you know, mental health, because as of late we've seen far too many athletes take their own lives. And, you know, it's real, it happens, because it's 4 times the leading cause of death in youth in Australians. It's, you know, 4 times more than road death or, you know, the road tolls. So that's obviously saying something. We just don't hear about it.
Do you think something like a mental health round in the NRL could be a good way of making sure those conversations start, or do you think it should be just a broader?
Look, I think it's always on the cards of it, you know, even if it's not a mental health round, it can be a mental health game. Could be, you know, a couple of teams clubs that come, you know, together to, you know, to make it an issue. I would say not an issue, to make it a conversation, you know, make it a topic of it. So, but, you know, in the day, we have all these amazing theme rounds, right? Every professional sport in Australia have these amazing theme rounds. I know NRL and a couple of AFL teams do it. They have their own mental health, you know, game. But to make it a round would be, you know, yeah, I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah. And with where Goanna Academy is at now, and I mean, what do you hope to achieve with it in the future? Like I said, we know what you achieved as a player, and this is now your next journey, as you described it. What does a premiership look like, or you know, with Goanna Academy in the next kind of 10 years?
I'd love to see the suicide rate come down a lot, but I'd also like to see the numbers go up in people reaching out for help.
Yeah,
you know, so I'd love to see suicide rate come down significantly, and, you know, there's health services having more higher numbers, but, you know, come with that there comes a lot more workload. So I'd like to see people, you know, put their hand up and go get their degree in that space to help help what's needed out there, because it's alarming how the numbers are.
Yeah.
You know, the numbers that that are going in and asking for help, but we don't have the staff or the people to keep up with that need.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's trying to work out a good balance to find a way to make sure nobody falls through the crack.
Absolutely.
You know, we're in preventative mental health, you know, space, so it's trying to identify which community or what's needed the most high, and then work out through that.
Well, the last thing that I'll ask you, Greg, is you've been on such a journey from little cheeky Maxville.
I was cheeky, all right.
Yeah. But who you were as a kid in Maxville, the cheeky stuff you did in Newcastle, then you ended up in this professional career that took you to Melbourne, to Sydney, and et cetera. And now you've had this journey with Goanna. As Greg, who you are now today, trying to bring down the suicide rate, trying to be an advocate in that space by telling your story and changing the conversation, what advice would you impart on that 15, 16-year-old Greg who's just moved to Newcastle, if you could talk to him?
Go home earlier. Go back home earlier. Don't sit around there and think you're a man before you and before you're 18. So, yeah, me sitting here now trying to tell the younger me to go home. Yeah, that's what I would say to young Greg. Just go back home. Even when I go back home, everyone still calls me Grego.
Yeah.
They call me GI. They don't call me, you know, this is, hey, Grego.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what makes home feel special. And like I said, I still see Dad's old mates and that, either at a cafe or at the pub, and, you know, we sit there and they have a giggle and they say, oh, you know, he wasn't always, he was always cheeky. So, you know, just bringing up those stories. But I guess go home earlier.
Yeah.
And realise what's at your feet.
Would that advice be the same if you were telling him, you know, what to do in those moments where, you know, he's not feeling that good or he's feeling pretty low? Is it to go home and reground yourself?
Yep.
Or
yep.
What else?
And that's what I'm trying to do now. Because, you know, when you're living in Melbourne, it's like 2 flights to get home. And then hire a car, and then you're only home. So that's a whole day travel, and you're home for a day, and then you got to get back on a plane to be ready to go again if you've got a weekend off. So I'm trying to, I wouldn't say, you say probably make up for lost time or make up for that feeling of being whole again. So anytime that I feel overwhelmed or I've got too much or I feel flat and fatigued, and this is where, you know, my wife plays a big part as well. She just tells me to jump in the car and drive home. It's only a 5-hour trip. You know, she seems like she makes out like it's longer, but I'm happy to drive that there and have those, you know, 3 days at home. Just sit back and relax and recenter myself. You know, home's always calms me. So going back there and. Yeah, like I said at the very start, press the reset button and get back into it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that your openness, like you say, you're an open book, but your openness to talk about that journey and, your mental health journey in particular, it's just you're walking the walk in terms of conversations that are just normalizing.
Yeah.
That it's okay to not be okay, but like, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Opens up the conversation, right?
Yeah. And love what you're doing with Goanna. I think it's really, really important. This next generation feels supported.
Thanks, Mal. Thanks for having me.
No worries.
All good.
That's it for season 2 of Marlee Me. Make sure you catch up on all the episodes anywhere you get your podcasts or on the 9Now app.